Welcome Pyre Monkey crew to the second part of our armored color painting series, where we are going to be focusing on red today. Here we have our first color. This is Blood Red from Reaper Master series. Now I chose this color because it is a very, very cool red, meaning that it's actually closer to magenta. And as you can see here, we are using a very, very thin glazing technique, and we are really just trying to tint the surface here, and we're trying to actually push this color a little bit into the shadows, just because we really want to deepen them. This cooler red, in case you aren't familiar, each color has a warm and cool component. It really helps deepen those shadows. It makes them feel darker just due to the inherent nature of this particular color. As you can see here, just utilizing that same technique that we used in the yellow color painting series, where we are really keeping the brush in the same place and rotating the model, allow the brush to access certain parts of the model in order to apply that paint. And we want to get decent coverage. We're going to be coming over this multiple times, so it's going to look very, very pink and pastel initially, but as we get those successive layers of this on, it's really going to eliminate a lot of that, and then as we move forward, it's going to really, really cover that. While we are working through this, I thought that this would be a good time to talk about those warm and cool components, and I'm going to throw those up on the screen here for you. So here we have a warm red, and then here we have a cool red, and so you can actually see the visual difference between the two. One, of course, is a little bit closer to being magenta. A lot of people refer to this as a scarlet red, whereas the warm red is kind of like a fire truck red. It's obviously a little bit closer to orange and then yellow. Understanding how to use warm and red color tones is it's an incredibly important lesson to learn for miniature painting, even for speed painting, in my opinion, like this, where you are wanting to use the cooler tone, if you can, in the shadows, and then use the warmer red on the upper parts, because it kind of indicates that it's closer to the light source. That is actually a type of contrast that doesn't really get discussed very often, is the warm-cold contrast. And of course, most people would think of like yellow and purple or blue and orange as being warm and cold contrast, but those even exist within the particular color, as we are going to show you today, and as you already saw from those examples. As you guys know, the main focus of these videos is to really create a very, very effective, very, very bright looking colored armor of one specific color, kind of in the speediest, most efficient way that we possibly can. You know, as I've said before, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, maybe just trying to add a couple of new tricks into your bag, a little bit of a better understanding of color theory and, you know, how to use those tools. And so now we're hopping into a time lapse, just because we've gone through the process once, and we are going to go through it again. This is the exact same consistency. And so, yeah, just continuing to push these colors into the shadow. As you can see, once we start getting these successive layers, the color intensity starts to really, really ramp up. That Blood Red from Reaper is just such a lovely, lovely, cool color. But this is also, you know, something that you can do for the entire model. If you want a Scarlet Red, you can just continue to do layers of this, and then you can really ramp it up the way that we do with the warm red that we're going to be using here in a minute, and you can use that process to do that. So it is entirely up to you. And as I've said before, this process is really for any kind of armored figure, any kind of thing that you really want to paint like a true red tone, or you know, it was the same with the yellow. So it's great if you want to paint red armor. on any type of model, this technique can be used. It's also great for if you want to paint things like cloth or, little objects or, just whatever. These techniques are being shown on these Primaris Marines because they're big, simple shapes, round shapes, cylinders, spheres, and it's the easiest for me to actually display this type of process to you with. Going into this third layer of this, we're actually going to increase the thickness of the paint just a touch. We're going to be going from kind of that like medium to heavy glaze to like a light layer to heavy glaze. And essentially we're wanting to really reinforce it. We are also still wanting to leave those. So the reason why I chose to do this is that I just wanted just that much more of the tone. I may have been going a little bit too easy with the previous two, and so I'm just wanting to show you that I am adjusting a little bit with this. The general nature of this particular paint as well, just due to the nature of the pigment or it being a cooler red tone, is that it's a little bit more transparent, and so it can be more difficult to get those layers on. Here is our warm red color. This is Khador Red Base from P3. It is an absolutely amazing red tone that I've been using for quite some time. And what we're going to be doing is thinning this down to kind of a light to medium layer consistency. And we're going to be really just layering this, or, placing this on top of these areas where there's any of that lighter pinkish tone still pushing through, while leaving some of that mid-tone of the scarlet and of course those shadows. So what this has the combination of doing with this is that we have the really dark shadows, which of course are, not entirely black, but not entirely the scarlet tone. We have this mid-tone of this cool scarlet color, and then we have this highlight of this warm scarlet color. As you can see by this chart that I just threw up, you can kind of see why this is very effective, and how using color temperature just within even a single color can really give us a lot of exaggeration and pop. So all of these steps are separate, and they can all be done together, or you can do as much or as little of them as you would like to. So for instance, if you wanted to stop with just the crimson process, you can definitely do that. If you want to continue and do, this warm on top of cool process, then that's also something that you can do. So just keep that in mind. Just trying to catch some of these smaller areas. As you can see as well, I try to make the habit of working particular areas. As you can see, I kind of work like the right arm, then the left arm, then the left leg, then the right leg, then the head, and then the backpack. This is just to kind of create an efficient way of moving about the figure and kind of making sure that we're hitting all of the key components that we need to. And so now we're speeding it up. We're really just repeating this process, really just trying to go through the figure with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb, and just picking out these areas, just making them that much more intense for the figure. As you can tell though, the result is brilliant. It's very, very bright. And so here we've jumped forward a little bit. I took the figure off camera and blocked out a lot of these really, really large zones, as you can tell with the black. And what we're doing now is we're coming through and lining out a lot of these separations between different armor plates. This has the effect of creating a lot of intense dark contrast, which makes our red feel even brighter. Black is one of those colors where I find time and time again that it is very, very applicable, but we're actually using Nightshade Purple, so it's not entirely black. It's kind of got some purple and magenta tones to it as well. It's my go-to darker color, or near black color, I guess you could say. This is a little bit of a meticulous process. And so if you want to do this, I would encourage you to, because it's going to help you improve your brush control. But if you do not want to do this, you can prime the miniature with a gloss varnish, and you can actually come through and make a little bit more of a wash consistency and do pin washes in a lot of these areas, or even an oil wash. And it's very, very effective. In one of the future videos, we are actually going to go through and do that. Even hitting the fingers right there. And hopefully you guys have kind of taken note. This is a very quintessential part of my painting process, is doing this black base coating as well as this dark lining. And the reason why, again, is that it creates such a profound contrast. And of course, if you're doing more of these miniatures at a time, right? Like let's say you're doing a 10-man squad, it just helps them really, really pop across the tabletop. I always say hold the miniature at arm's length, and if the contrast is really popping out at you, then you're definitely on the right track. And this really, really helps us do that. It really helps each of the pieces feel separate from the other, which is half of the battle. A lot of the feedback that I give to beginners as well is you need to keep all of these elements separate, and this is how we do that. And a lot of the pushback that I get on this is that it is a little bit time consuming. I probably spend about 5 minutes doing this on the whole miniature. It's a good use of time, and again, it's going to really help improve your brush control. A lot of people that I've talked to have problems painting thin straight lines, and again, this is kind of a safe way to actually practice doing that, because you're having to rotate the miniature and pull those little lines, or kind of brush those little thin lines. And not only are you creating excellent contrast on your miniature, you are also practicing doing those type of thin line exercises that really come in hand if you're trying to create like a checkered texture, or something like a tartan. Another one is freehands. There's just so many various situations where you might need it. The other benefit with this is control. There's just much more control. Washes are definitely simpler. You're letting the capillary action of the wash do the work for you, right? Both have a modicum of cleanup as well. I would love to see you guys painting some red armor, and be sure that if you do and you post it up on social media, that you tag me. I'd love to see it. You are also more than welcome to post it up in the Pirate Monkey Painting Discord. We would love to see it there as well. There we are after all of the dark lining. And so here we are doing a little bit of edge highlighting. With this, all I did is I added a little bit of that Cygnus yellow, as you just saw. And really what we're trying to do here is just kind of hit these edges of a lot of these materials, or kind of the upper parts, just to create that much more contrast with it. And you know, we don't have to do edge highlighting all over the miniature. As you can tell there, I just did just little touches of it on key places, and the same there. It's really all you need to do to make it successful, and that's really the end of what we do with this model. I hope that you guys thoroughly enjoyed this process, as I enjoyed painting it for you guys. I wanted to thank all of you Patreons for all of your support over these last couple of months. Keep your eye out for the next video coming up next month. We are going to be painting blue armor, so I'm super excited about that. And then after blue, we are going to be switching to some of those secondary colors. We're going to be painting orange, green, and then purple. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and happy painting.